we go there. So, 9. Good morning, it's Billy Dooley here with Coach Dooley's List. We are here in beautiful Jefferson, Georgia, and meet with a buddy of mine, Coach Allan Bailey here, the head softball coach at Jefferson. Coach, thank you for meeting with us this morning. First off, just always want to ask, what's your coaching journey been like? I've known you for several years. You've been at a couple different places, but just kind of tell everybody, where all you've been and how you got here.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to coach at a lot of great places. Started out many years ago down at Nathaniel Green Academy, GISA school, where I did a lot of different things. I was the athletic director, baseball coach, softball coach, golf coach, did it all. But I gained a lot of really great experience being able to do all that. And then went up to Oconee County, taught social studies and coached baseball, softball, football, basketball, did a lot of it up there. Then moved on to Appalachia High School, where I got my first head coaching job, baseball and softball. Was there for 7 or 8 years, and then been at Jefferson the last 2 years.
Awesome. Yes, I actually had a friend of mine actually a former student who coached, was the AD at Nat Green and coached 8-man football. And I went up there one day, and it's a different world out there.
It certainly is.
But it's a really cool atmosphere. It was really, really cool. So actually, I prepped you with some of the questions, and I forgot this one. So one of the things I like to ask coaches, and I actually got this from Tony Wolf at Buford. He asked me one time, he said, "What's your hedgehog?" And really what it meant by that, the hedgehog curls up in a ball, can't penetrate his armor. So he's like, what is your program known for? So, as you've been here at Jefferson for 2 years now, right?
Yep.
For 2 years, what are you trying to instill in these girls? And when people leave the field, what do you want your team and your program to be known for?
So one of the things that I think is one of my, some people hedgehog or non-negotiables or some of those things, I think really, people talk about it all the time, but culture, what is it like in this dugout when we're playing a game or at practice, and what I want our girls to feel is like this is a family atmosphere. This is a place where they're battling for each other. They are, working together, and through the good times, the bad times, the winning, the losing, and I think that, we try to play at a certain level all the time. And it doesn't matter if there's, a bunch of people in the stands. Doesn't matter if it's, late at night practice, early morning swinging. We try to give it our best to make sure that our standard is always being met. And I feel like that has given us a leg up because, that's been a part of a lot of cool things, in my coaching career. And a lot of that has to do with a never give up. You're always playing to a standard. And I think that once the, team believes in that, I think that's where you see a lot of a really great, success and fun things that happen. But the culture piece, being able to, always do what we believe in, I feel like that's a big part.
Yeah, and culture, especially nowadays, is really important with programs, and and just they're teenagers, so wanting kids to be a part of things. You hear often talking about family. So in just all the programs you've been in and all the coaching you've done, what's one of your favorite coaching stories? And that could be something that happened on the field, off the field, one of your favorite players, favorite plays. What's your favorite story or one that pops into your mind?
Well, it's doing baseball and softball for such a long time. There's so many. You can test all the different great players. I think the relationships is one of the things that I just love. Especially now with the College World Series about to kick off with softball and the baseball playoffs and all that, you just, you remember a lot of different things. A couple years ago, we were fortunate to, play in the state championship for softball. And, one of the girls that was playing for us, we played against Pope, Alyssa Willer, hits a home run in the, stadium down there in Columbus. And, she's down at Florida this weekend. They're about to kick off the, regionals.
Tech, right?
She's at Georgia Tech. And, just seeing, she grew up playing, in our feeder programs at Appalachia. And then, she lived in my neighborhood over there, and, she babysits my kids. And so being able to see, a great human have success at the highest of levels, that's the, ultimately the one of the most rewarding things a coach can have, and, she still comes back and comes and sees us, and we reminisce about all the little things. And, but I think that, that home run in the state championship was one of the things that I'll probably remember for a long time.
Oh yeah, the relationships is great. You talk about have babysitting and that kind of stuff. I mean, all of our babysitters for my two boys are former players.
That's right.
And and then they graduate college and move on to the next one. So that's great. So what you've had a couple of head coaching stops and obviously a great career so far. What would be one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who thinks they want to become a head coach, whether that's softball, football, basketball, any sport in high school, especially nowadays, it's a lot different than years ago. What's one piece of advice you would give?
I would say, early in your career, the things that you think are important aren't the most important things, and I kind of mentioned it before, but being, a champion or in the, corner of every girl or every guy, or just being there to help mentor and be a support system for each player. I think, you get caught up in the wins and losses early and you kind of get defined by that, certain times. But I think the longer I do this, I feel like the impact that I can have on every player, that comes through here is kind of the end goal. And, the relationships, you want to be able to, here we're preaching everything's for Jefferson or for the J and that family, and so we like to carry a big roster, and part of that is, on me to try to help, foster that environment of, everybody's got a role to play, a piece of the puzzle. They're all different, but everybody's valued, and I think that you can get caught up in the best nine, or trying to win every single game, in which we try really hard to do that, but ultimately we're focused on every kid that puts on our jersey and trying to make their experience at the high school softball level the best it can be.
No, and that's awesome. And moving forward, talking about vendors and things. The whole idea behind Coach Dooley's list is to help connect coaches with vendors. And for those of you who don't know, if you've never worked with Coach Bailey before, he is one of the top dogs in trying to find vendors. I actually had a vendor tell me one time that they were sending you sock quotes because you were getting 3 quotes for socks to make sure that you were doing the best for your program. And this, every little bit helps.
That's
I
right.
mean, y'all don't see everything that's out here. They've got a brand new wall that I'll put as the thumbnail pic for this. It's beautiful. They've got these signs put up in here. They're growing. So with all that, I go to Coach Bailey a lot for vendors and knowing who he likes as well. So, if you wanted to give a vendor a shout out, could be one. I know you work with a ton of them. So who are some of your favorites that you've worked with, and why do you like working with them?
I always try to get make our facilities the best they can be for, making the experience the best it can be, with, girls out playing travel ball, they see a lot of different things. And so we try to bring some things back. This sign right here that we use, even, rec teams, they'll come in here and use it. But Cotton Eye Joe's out of Gainesville did a great job for us. We're about to replace our backstop netting. So Netting World and Ty Williams, they're going to be doing that project for us. So we're really fired up about that. We use R&S Sports for all of our apparel with Jamie Chosewood, and so they do a really good job outfitting our girls. And so we've got a lot. We try to build a lot of good relationships with a lot of different people so that we can get the best things for our girls.
Yeah, and it matters. One of the things too, in talking about with coaching and running a program is you don't want to spend months trying to get things.
Right.
You want to get things. You want to get what you ordered. You want to get it on time by the season and not halfway through, and that's definitely important. So, well, listen, Coach, I appreciate you getting out of bed this morning and coming over
Absolutely.
here and meeting with us. I know there's a lot of good, valuable information, especially for young coaches, and we appreciate you, and good luck.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.